All right. I can hear myself. Good morning.
Morning.
Thanks for having me. And thank you so much for the music. It was wonderful.
Oh, you're welcome.
So I have a huge family here. And my friend Todd has made the trek from where? Espanola. Today's sermon is, I don't like your motives. Well, not the ones I've decided you have anyway. And here we go. Wednesday, May 9th, was a day much like any other. I woke at 5:45 in the morning, sat in a semi-catatonic state, sipping coffee, trying to get my bearings. I insisted that my feeble mind square itself with the day, an often futile exercise. I ate breakfast and left for work, where I answered calls, fixed computer problems, and then returned home exhausted. That evening I sat reading the New York Times email digest when my attention was drawn to a rather spectacular headline. Thinking it a mistake, I clicked the link and read the following quote from Barack Obama. I have to tell you that over the course of several years, as I have talked to friends and family and neighbors, when I think about members of my own staff who are in incredibly committed monogamous relationships, same-sex relationships, who are raising kids together, when I think about those soldiers or airmen or Marines or sailors who are out there fighting on my behalf, and yet they feel constrained, even now that Don't Ask, Don't Tell is gone, because they are not able to commit themselves in a marriage. At a certain point, I've just had to conclude that for me personally, it is important for me to go ahead and affirm that I think same-sex couples should be able to get married. With a smile, I turned to my wife and said, "Wow, did you know Obama endorsed same-sex marriage today?" "Yes," she replied, without looking up from her blogging activities. But I sat there stunned and glad for the change. The next few days saw rampant speculation about the president's timing, about his motives, about his political implications of his actions. But nothing anybody said had the ring of truth. The commentary was pure speculation, peppered with guesswork, all wrapped up in responsible-sounding language, masquerading as fact. Obama had offered a simple explanation for his decision. I suppose his words lacked sensationalism. So our media had to generate engaging reasons for his decision. None were insightful. Most were a gauge of our society's tendency to ascribe motive as a means of gaining political advantage. Today's sermon is about exactly those kinds of motives. The kinds that people attribute to others without knowing what they're talking about. The kinds of motives that we create in order to know which category someone belongs in order to determine how carefully we should listen to someone, if at all. As with most of my sermons, today's talk was inspired by a conversation I had with my wife. Several months ago, she told me that I often attribute motives to her which aren't her actual motives. I was flabbergasted. "What?" I stuttered. "I attribute wrong motives?" I like to think of myself as being unusually insightful. I'm not particularly fond of having someone else point out my mistakes. I prefer instead to identify my own shortcomings and then highlight them for others. That way I can bask in the warm glow of my own self-enlightenment. But I had to admit that she was right. I didn't know her motives. I hadn't asked her. This insight, though annoying, caused me to consider how often people attribute motives to others without actually knowing. Immediately, I thought of national dialogue concerning same-sex marriage, the war in Afghanistan, pro-life, pro-choice, deficit spending, pro-union, pro-business, race relations, feminism, education, parenting. Wow. Indeed, our media, our politics, our religious conversations, and even our personal lives are inundated with alleged motives that may, in all reality, have little or nothing in common with the true reasons that actions were taken or things were said. Let's consider marriage equality. Is it a civil rights issue? Supporters say yes. They insist that two people who are old enough should be allowed to marry. To them, prejudice is prejudice, free choice is free choice. Marriage equality is nothing more than observing someone's right of free choice in an arena where it is currently being denied. Simple and straightforward. This represents my sincere point of view. However, my philosophical opponents don't see it this way. In fact, many believe marriage equality supporters are servants of evil. They believe we're pushing a gay agenda, which will undermine the sanctity of a bedrock institution and which could tear our society apart. To them, supporters of marriage equality are minions of Satan, bent on destroying this great Christian nation. Between you and me, I think they've got my motives wrong. But what about assigning motives in the other direction? What if we consider another topic, maybe not so controversial, pro-life and pro-choice? I suspect that many of you, like myself, are pro-choice. My reasons for this are similar to my reasons for supporting marriage equality. I believe in free choice. I feel that a woman has the right to choose if, how, and when her body is used. On the opposite side of this controversy, we'll consider my late grandfather, a staunch Catholic. His pro-life conviction was steadfast. He was clear that aborting a pregnancy is tantamount to murder. He saw an unborn fetus as being no different than any person you might meet in this world. It was a simple matter to him. Conception creates people, abortion kills people, killing people is murder, and murder is wrong. I don't agree with all of his reasoning. However, I can respect his clarity. I differ from those who claim that my grandfather's position on abortion made him a misogynist. I reject the notion that pro-life activists are primarily motivated by a desire to control women's lives and bodies. This may be true of some, but I'm convinced that most pro-lifers passionately feel that they are fighting to stop murder. I think they're bewildered when accused of being dishonest or nefarious. Truthfully, I think we have their motives all wrong. These two examples demonstrate a broader problem in our society. A problem which prevents intelligent conversation, which discourages collaboration, and which undermines the creative power of controversy. I'm one of those people who believe that the most innovative ideas are spawned from controversy. That when opposing opinions clash and intelligent dialogue ensues, we create fertile ground for the germination of new ideas. But in our society, the required dialogue is missing. We hurl insults. We categorize each other. We call people Nazis. We do this all to insulate ourselves from having to consider their points of view. The soil that should nurture tomorrow's solutions is growing fallow, and most of today's ideas are little more than a polished regurgitation of yesterday's discarded plan. This is concerning. With global climate change, a dubious economy, rampant starvation, a growing population, and shrinking resources, we face unprecedented challenges. So what's the solution? That's the hard part. In my observation, human beings prefer a simple answer. It seems that today's problems, today's challenges, are too complex for them. They defy black and white categorization. They require thoughtful discourse, a nuanced approach, holistic thinking. We need to constantly look for where we are falling short of our own values. I grew up as a Unitarian Universalist, mostly. I was a Catholic until I was 11. UU values are very important to me. They include a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, the promotion of inherent worth and dignity of all people, respect for the interdependent web of all existence. Those are values that could make a profound difference in today's world. They're values that humanity desperately needs, and we could be their greatest champions if we're willing. But we'll have to give something up. We'll have to pay a price, and that price will be our certitude. Ours is a religion which ought to make room for everyone, and yet there are very few African American UUs, Hispanic UUs, Native American UUs, Republican UUs. There are some. If we want our message to be vital, we need to reach these people. And if we're going to do so, we have to stop thinking that we already know what their motives are. When we assume that we know what someone's motives are, we excuse behavior which is normally unacceptable. I used to rant that George W. Bush was a fascist and a Nazi. Bottom line is I was wrong. My wife's paternal family is Jewish. One of her cousins, her parents lost everyone they knew in Nazi concentration camps. She has no grandparents, no aunts, no uncles. Her parents have no lifelong friends. They were all murdered in Nazi Germany. So using the term Nazi to describe anyone who isn't engaged in mass murder, that's wrong. Especially when the purpose is merely to score cheap political points. The memory of those men and women and children who were lost during that genocide is worthy of much more respect than to serve some short-term political agenda. So if we're going to change this world and leave it a better place, if we're going to really promote our UU values in the world at large, we'll have to rise above such contemptuous foolery. We'll have to elevate current dialogues to a level where change can happen, where innovation can flourish, where UU values can sow dreams which might sprout and become tomorrow's thriving harvest. If we're going to create that world about which we speak so eloquently, we'll have to abandon inflammatory language and try to gain an honest understanding of why people disagree with us. Otherwise, we can't possibly hope to reach them. And we're sure to miss out on any valid points that they have to make. I believe UU values are what this world needs. I believe we're the best people to promote those values in this world. I believe we can make a profound difference in this world and for future generations. I hope we'll do so. I hope our denomination will stand tall and pass on our gift to this troubled world in this time of need. Thank you. Oh yes. I'm going to turn this on again. Now is the time when we give money freely. Do we have a basket?
Yes.
Okay.